Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Good. Love it. Love
I'm super
it.
excited about today and your
Yes. Oh
workshop.
my gosh, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's tough for me to follow Nicole because she's incredible. Oh. Oh, did you pop on mute? I heard you for a minute and then all of a sudden it just decided. Like, there we go. Oh, I can't hear you. Weird. Not yet, no. I heard you before. In the beginning when you came on, I heard you fine. It's so weird. Now? Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, there we
Sweet. So weird. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
my AirPods do that too. Like they kind of come in and out. So that's why I didn't put them in for this. I was like, I'm just gonna, so.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell if it's too echoey in this room whenever I don't have them in.
Yes.
A little bit of a difference. It's a cement, building.
Yes. Love it.
Lots
Aw.
of echo, but
It's all good. Sounds
but yeah.
fine. Yes. Cool. Do you want me to wait a couple minutes? Should I just go for it?
Well,
Because I know it's being recorded.
people jump in a little bit later.
Yeah.
But if you want to just go for it, doesn't matter. Everything will be uploaded into the replay.
Exactly.
And then into the community. So I'm right now uploading everything into YouTube and then into the community. So
Cool.
we're super excited.
That's so awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, yeah, let's just do it then. Let's jump.
Go, girl.
Yes. Awesome. Well, yes. So exciting. So excited to be here and chat. And like I've heard the other presenters say, it's like I could talk about these things for days and hours and hours. So I'm going to try to keep it succinct. I made a little outline, so I may reference it just so I don't jump onto so many tangents because it's easy to do and you get kind of like the snowball effect. But well, first things first, I'm Amber Bender. I'm a physician assistant, but I work in functional medicine. So if you're just getting used to functional medicine or that's new to you, we'll talk about that. I'll talk more about that through the different workshops, but it's really, as you'll hear me talk about today, it's really getting down to the root causes of what's going on. And specifically for me, it's not just the root cause in the body, it's the root cause in the mind and body too. So that's my background. And then I also am certified as an eating psychology coach as well. So I bring those two worlds together. And so, yes. And so today I really wanted to talk about, yes, stress, but then that relationship with food and stress eating that I know a lot of us, honestly, within the past couple of years too, we've seen some of these habits kind of kick up with all of the added stress, maybe the burnout, the uncertainty, unpredictability. And so a lot of people will tell me, one of two things usually. It's kind of one of two directions. I'm just so busy, maybe on that brink of burnout. I'm stressed to the max. I'm running around juggling so many things, and I just don't feel like I have time to be healthy. I don't know how to fit it into my schedule. It's how do I have a healthy lifestyle when I'm this crazy? Or they feel like they just can't be consistent with it. So I really help with that. I really help with those people that are really stressed and time pressed to sync that into their schedule without making an overhaul of life. Because a lot of us can't just say, all right, I'm not going to have the responsibilities with the family, the kids, I'm going to quit my job, all of those things. So we have to figure it out for where you're at. That's one piece. And then the other piece is how does that stress level and everything that we have going on, maybe that burnout, contribute to perhaps unwanted eating habits or health habits that just aren't aligned with where we want to be in our health journey. And there's a really deep connection there. So I thought that for today's workshop, I would really start with chatting about that connection with stress in our eating habits. Where does it come from? All the way back to our ancestors, right? How is it kind of set up for us and the way we live our lives now? And of course, what can we start to do about that as well? So just to give you guys a little bit of my background before we get into it, just my personal story. So yes, I've always been that like go person, that like high achieving perfectionist, set the bar super high for myself, always juggling so much in my life. So it's like kind of, I feel like I'm jumping on different lily pads of stress pads throughout my life and burnout. And I know a lot of you can relate to that. And so it was always hard for me personally to figure out how to integrate health into all of that chaos and that craziness. And I did feel like I could never be consistent with that. And then for me as well, I struggled for years, even decades, with my relationship with food and body. And and for me, that included multiple eating disorders. You name one, I dealt with it, I had it. And what I like to tell people is that even when I had gone through recovery and I didn't have like a full-blown diagnosable, by the books eating disorder, I still really struggled with food and body. It kind of followed me, whatever phase of life I was in, these food and body challenges, or a lot of times what we call now like emotional eating, or feeling like you're chronically dieting, jumping from one plan to the next, on and off the bandwagon, and all of that, all of those emotions that go with it. And that's why we call it emotional eating. The guilt, the shame, the obsession with food, the constant fixation on that, and how that can really hold us back in our lives. And I felt like that. And so even when I had gone through recovery through from eating disorders, and was still just finding like these cravings are taking over for me. I'm eating when I'm not even hungry. I'm always in the kitchen. Like, what's going on? There's got to be something deeper than that. And so it was just my personal mission, which took me many, many years, decades to figure it out. And of course, like so many people, I tried everything. I hear that from a lot of people, a lot of women especially. I tried everything, and either something works for a little bit, and a little bit we might get results, but then falls off after a while, or maybe it doesn't even work at all. And so there's a lot of frustration with that. And with frustration leads to the kind of what I call the case of the might as wells, like, well, it's not working for me. I might as well just eat whatever I want, right? But we know that only lasts so long too, until we get sick of where we're at and not feeling well, not feeling good about ourselves, our body. So then what do? We jump on the next diet train, the next crash diet. And that's where that kind of yo-yo effect comes from, that on and off the bandwagon. And so for me on my journey, I was just spending so much time and energy, and of course, for a lot of people, a lot of money on these different plans and programs. And I just kept asking, why? Why is it like this for me? It's not like this for everyone. What's going on? And I just went on this journey and this search. And when I finally found some of the key pieces that worked, and I'll give you a little hint, it's what I talked about in the beginning. It's really finding the root causes of what's actually driving this that's going on. That's when I healed myself, of course, first, and then decided that it kind of made the revelation that I didn't go through all of these challenges, all this struggle, all this hardship in my life, being at the lowest of lows, being like, is this all it is for me in my life? I didn't go through all of that for no reason at all. And my reason I went through that was that. So now that's my mission. That's how I serve others. That's how I help. I was meant to go through all that so that I know what to do now. I can relate to people, and then I can help. So just to give you guys a little bit of my background, because I'm so passionate about this, and I'm so passionate about helping in this way, because I've been there for decades of my life where it's almost like a prison. And you feel like, is this just it for me? And if you feel like that, I just want to give you the hope and just have that hope deep down inside that you are meant for more and you deserve more than that. And you can honestly unlock a different level of living life. And my community, my clients will say that it's a different level of living when you're not trapped or bound or imprisoned by food. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background, but let's dive into more of the topic of what we were going to talk about today, which is really that idea of stress and stress eating, right? So a lot of us, again, stressful days, a lot going on. Maybe we're super busy throughout the day. We're running around, we're juggling the kids, going to work, whatever, painting the picture of when we get home at night. And nighttime tends to be a time that I hear a lot where people will struggle with eating challenges. They'll say, I feel like I'm so good during the day. I do really good. We say these kind of phrases. And then I get home at night and it's like all bets are off. I can't get out of the kitchen. I'm mindlessly eating. It's like a bottomless pit. If you feel like that, just know that that's very common, but it doesn't mean that it's not distressing to us because we feel out of control. And so bringing in this stress picture here, a lot of times when we are in that go, go, go mode during the day, and I'm going to echo a lot of things, I'm kind of sidewinding here, but I'm going to echo a lot of things that you may have heard when Mikal did her presentation and talk about some of those things. So if you hear things that ring a bell from her talk and things that kind of set off a little like alarm system, like I already heard that from somewhere. If you're hearing things multiple times, there may be something to it. So just bank that, right? Bank that in your head. But when we are in that go, go, go mode, and like Mikal talked about, that's our stress response mode. That's our sympathetic nervous system response mode. And our body, and I'm going to talk about our ancestries a little bit here too, but our body does not want to chronically live in the sympathetic state. So that's, like she mentioned, that is our stress response. That's our fight or flight mode. That's our survival mode response. And so way back in our primitive times, right, evolutionary medicine here, when our ancestors, when they were in heightened times of stress, there were two main reasons really why they were stressed out. It was because they don't know when the next source of food, they don't know when that's coming in, right? So they're stressed about food. When am I going to eat next? That's how I survive. That's at survival mode. Or the stress was, I'm going to be eaten by something. So it's either I need to eat or I'm going to be eaten. So those were kind of the two scenarios. And so almost if you're looking at this in terms of stress eating, our ancestors, when they found food, they were in that stress response, looking for food that elevates our insulin levels, right? Makes us a little bit insulin resistant when we are in the stress response. When they found food, it's not like they were going to be mindfully eating a portion of food and that's it and whatever. If bears find a bushel of berries before they hibernate, they gorge on the berries, right? Because they don't know the next time that they're going to eat. They eat when they're under that stress, right? So we've learned this over the period of evolution, right? Eat or be eaten. However, our survival mode, our stress response in that sympathetic nervous system, we're no longer being chased by a bear or trying to outrun something that might eat us, or we have an abundance of availability of food right now, so we can eat whenever we want. But that response is really ingrained in us from our ancestry. And so we know that when we're in that stress response state, a lot of times it is an emergency situation, but our go-to is to eat. And why do we eat when we're stressed out? Well, when we're stressed, our body is kind of in that mode of chaos, right? It feels like Mikal was talking about, we're in that fight or flight state. We are trying to free, right? We're trying to get out of that. We know that we shouldn't live in that state. We should live in the relaxation state, the repair state, the regrowth, renewal state. That's our rest, what we call the rest and digest mode. We should live in that state chronically. So our body wants to get out of that. And the quickest way that we know we can feel better when we're under times of heightened stress is by eating. We just know, feel bad or feel stressed, eat food, feel better, right? It's like instantaneous. But then comes the aftermath later down the line when the food guilt and shame and anxiety and worry about, oh my gosh, what did I eat? I shouldn't have had that. It was bad for me. All that comes into play. And believe it or not, when we are fixated and obsessed with food and constantly thinking about it and labeling it as good or bad or shouldn't have had this or I shouldn't eat after 10 p.m. and all of these rules, right, that we make up, when we do that, that's actually increasing our what we call our psychological stress. Sometimes we call it our self-perceived stress. Sometimes we call it our self-chosen stress. It's another form of a stressor that can actually tap into that sympathetic response. And that's when we feel like we're in that cycle, that never-ending cycle of stress eating or emotional eating, because we're stressing ourselves out more. So what do? We eat to feel better about it. So I don't know if you've ever felt like that. Like it's that never-ending cycle that you can't seem to get out of. And the way our schedules are kind of formatted is it's not really helping us out because we're running around all day. We are so busy. So we're in that heightened stress, that heightened, stress state, right? That survival mode. When we come home at night, and I gave this example, what do we want to do? We're done with the day. We got everything finished. The kids got off to all of their soccer practices and all of the things. We went to work. We did everything that we needed to do. But then it's time for us to finally unwind. We want to unwind. We want to relax. We want to feel good. We kick up our heels. Maybe we throw on the Netflix, right? Whatever. We're finally home. And what do we do to not only get our bodies in that relaxation state, right? But it's like a coping mechanism for us to get into the relaxation mode. And we do that by food. So we turn to food as our solution. So a lot of people that I talk with will say, emotional eating and stress eating, it's my problem. I just can't get over this. It's my issue. Well, what I like to tell them is, emotional eating or stress eating is actually your solution because you're using this to manage as a coping mechanism, right? To manage the stress you have going on or to manage some difficult emotions that you may be feeling or any emotion. People will say too, just as much as we eat when we're depressed, when we're sad, when we're down, all of these feelings, people will say, yeah, but I eat to celebrate too. It's like my reward, right? So we use food for whatever emotion that we're feeling, even when someone says, I'm eating when I'm bored, I don't even know why, or I'm eating and I'm not even hungry, right? So we can go down that path and talk about a little bit about that too. If you felt before, like I'm eating and I don't even feel like I'm hungry to actually eat. Sorry, I have to hydrate. But if you feel like that sometimes, if you feel like, I call it bottomless pit eating. If you feel like you've come home at night and you're just raiding the kitchen pantry, the refrigerator, you're back and forth, and people will say to me, I feel like I just don't have a cue or a switch. Like people talk about hunger cues and fullness cues. I don't get those messages. I just eat no matter what. Well, we go back to the stress response and being in that sympathetic nervous system response state. When we are in that mode, our body is not receiving the messages and signals from hormones, from our gut-brain axis. That's when our digestive system is basically telling our brain, hey, you've nourished yourself with food. You've eaten food. I am trying right now in the parasympathetic state to digest and assimilate these nutrients throughout the body. That message, that signaling system gets blunted. So we don't receive those messages. those hormones of fullness, of satiety or satisfaction, those hormones of hunger, all of those signals as well get blunted. So if you feel like, I don't get those hunger cues, I don't get those fullness cues, a lot of times it's because we're locked in the sympathetic state. We need to be in that rest, digest, parasympathetic state in order for these signals, these hormones, all of that messaging to actually take place in our body. And believe it or not, the more that we continue with these patterns and with these habits, if you felt like, I want to break these habits, I want to do better with my eating, or however you want to say that, I want to incorporate more nutritious foods, but I feel like I can't. I just keep going back to those same habits. That was me. I wanted so badly to my core to change those habits, but I felt like I couldn't. There was something that kept perpetuating that for me. And what happens is that our hormones too can build up a resistance. So the more and more we continue with these habits, the harder and harder it is for our body to appreciate those signals, appreciate those messages. That doesn't mean that it can't be done, of course. And that's where we really get into the nitty gritty of getting down to the functional medicine piece of this, where I work, is what you need to know is that there are things aside from being in that sympathetic nervous system response, which of course can blunt all these messages and signals that we're receiving about eating, but also there may be things going on in the body, imbalances or causes in the body that drive us to certain patterns and behaviors, habits that we don't want, unwanted habits. So what does that look like if you feel like your cravings are through the roof? A lot of times this can come from, again, imbalances with hormones, but also in our metabolism, in our gut too. And so that's why it's so important to have the mind and body approach to this, because if your mindset, I like to say this all the time, if your mindset around food, if you've healed your relationship with food and with eating with your body, if that's tough as nails, but you're still feeling there's something that is keep continuing to drive me to raid the kitchen at night, to always have a sweet after every meal, feel like I have to have a dessert to end a meal, right? There's probably an imbalance in the body that's going on that's driving that. If there's an overgrowth of bacteria or yeast in the gut that feeds off of sugar, and it's just telling you, feed me, feed me, feed me, right? The mindset is great, but you're not going to be able to overcome that unless we take care of that imbalance in the gut. I hope that makes sense. So just relating that to my journey. So when I went through years of therapy, years of training, years of mindset work to get through my distorted eating habits and everything like that, and I had come to a great place, a great transformation with that. But then, like I said, I was still feeling like I was struggling with emotional eating, struggling with cravings, struggling with portion control, things like that. Well, that's when I learned about the functional medicine piece, which is what's going on in the body that's still driving these things, even though I feel like I understand and can appreciate, okay, I'm eating under stress. I know that I'm in the sympathetic response. So that's what's driving these habits and behaviors. I get that. So I'm working on that, right? But what is going on beyond that keeps it going on? So I hope that's getting a little bit of the wheels turning for you guys in terms of what can drive some of our emotional eating, what can drive some of our stress eating tendencies. And what I like to tell you is that it is much deeper than what you think, and it is much more, please understand, it is much more than you not having enough willpower, or you not having enough self-motivation or drive, or you not finding the right diet that works for it, right? All of those things, because I think that we keep trying so many things. We're trying what may or may not work for us, right? And then when we fall on and off the bandwagon, it's like, well, I just don't have any willpower. At the end of the day, I hear this so much. At the end of the day, I just self-sabotage myself. I do good all day and then I self-sabotage myself. Well, if you guys stick around here enough, you'll hear some themes that I talk about a lot, but one of those is that I do not believe in willpower and I don't believe in self-sabotage. And that's in terms of our eating habits, because there is a brilliant physiological, psychological, physical reason for why our eating habits exist, but it is up to us to discover the reason why. So if you've ever said before, I know what I should be doing, I know what's healthy, I know what's not, I know all of these things, but I just don't know why I can't do it. I don't know why I don't stick with it. So it's up to us on our health journey, and I'm kind of calling all of us out here, right? With that responsibility of it's up to us on our health journey to find out those reasons why. And they are within the mind and the body both, right? So you're not a willpower weakling. One of my mentors who I trained under would always say that, like, you're not a willpower weakling. You don't struggle with self-sabotage. There's a physiological, brilliant reason why you're doing what you do. So now let's just figure it out. And when we do that, then we can really be released from that food prison that I talk about all the time. When we can live without going from meal to meal being fixated on food. We can go from jumping from diet to diet and feel like we're constantly just on and off the bandwagon, because that gets so exhausting, and it just doesn't have to be like that when we know what's actually going on. And the other thing with that is that it's different for everyone. No one person is the same. Your gut isn't the same as Sally's gut down the road, right? So that's why you hear a lot about individualized medicine or personalized healthcare, right? We have to know what's going on with you, because what works for one person may not work for you. And we don't want to keep trying all of these things to see if it may or may not work. We want to actually find out what's really going on, so then you have that targeted approach to this. I hope that makes sense. And you guys, I'm just reading some of the comments, which is great. I love it. So yeah, I kind of like spewed out so much information there. But let's talk about more. I'm just reviewing my notes to make sure I'm hitting all of the main things here. But let's talk about more. So now you're probably saying, that's great. I feel like I am in sympathetic nervous system response. I am super stressed out. I'm on the brink of burnout. Like, awesome. I know that. The first step is always that awareness of what's going on. So maybe that's why this is driving some of my stress eating habits, some of these unwanted habits with food, right? So then what do we do about it? Because again, we can't just overhaul our lives and change all of the duties and responsibilities that we have going on. Well, one thing that I like to tell people that I work with in my community is that, first of all, take a look at your day. So a lot of times when I hear that phrase of I do good all day until I get to the nighttime, right? I just ask, well, walk me through a day. You know, what do you eat during the day? What does that look like? And it's like, well, in the morning it's so crazy. So I go through the drive-through in Starbucks. I get like an extra grande. I don't drink coffee, right? So it's like whatever the sizes are, tall, grande, max, whatever. So the biggest one, 24 ounce, they're like, I shoot through there, and it's like I get to work, and the first few hours are crazy. I get this. I work in healthcare. So it's like the second you step into the hospital, it's like you are so busy and you really can't, like, I don't know how you would eat unless you're like running from whatever and eating. But the first couple hours, people are like, I can't eat. And so, and then lunch comes around and I do really good. I have like a salad. And when I ask what's on the salad, it's like, it's not enough sustenance. We'll say that, right? And then they're like, oh, maybe I'll grab like a little handful of nuts in the afternoon. Like for me, I'm like, anyone that's satisfied by just having a handful of nuts and that's it, I commend you, because that will not do it for me. I don't get that. Like, nuts are so satisfying. I'm like, no, they're not. They're just not. So, and then we get to the end of the day and it's like, I'm looking at your day, and this is the concept of macronutrient balance. And whether you're doing Mediterranean diet, keto diet, vegan, plant, whatever you're doing, right? There still is this concept of macronutrient balance. So, first of all, I'm looking at that person's day and they think that they're doing good, but you've hardly had any calories throughout your day. Wouldn't we expect that your body almost goes into that like make up for lost time mode? And it's finally when we're home and we're starting to switch into that relaxation response, that parasympathetic mode, the digestion is kicking on, that the body's saying like, oh my gosh, finally feed me, give me food. I want this. I need this fuel, right? And when we're almost in that, I call it the ravenous state. And this is a classic example that I give because it's so relevant to me for so many years. I would hardly eat anything through the day, or didn't eat enough protein, didn't eat enough fats, carbs, whatever it was. I was not in macronutrient balance. I came home, was in that ravenous state, and no one in their ravenous state is running into the kitchen, flying the fridge doors open, and just tearing into a bag of carrots when they're that hungry and they just want to eat. Like, we're not going to make this glorious salad, right? We're going to reach for the snacky things, and we're going to reach for maybe not the best choices, the things that really taste good, right? Some of those things. So I talk about that a lot because really it's how we stack our day. So take a look at what you're doing throughout the day. Do you need to fuel your body more throughout the day? Then also it's all about when are you eating throughout the day too, because I know that we're running around and we're busy, we're on the go. So a lot of times, especially women that I talk to who are just juggling so many things, I imagine like the van with the doors open and closing and all the kids coming in and out. We're eating on the run. When we eat on the run, again, we're in that sympathetic nervous system response state. We're very distracted. When we're distracted with eating, again, our body doesn't register or our brain doesn't register. Great. You've nourished yourself through food, right? We can nourish ourselves through many different areas in our lives, our relationships, right? Movement, sleep, all of these things. But nourished ourselves through food, it doesn't get that message. And so then we're hungry later on, and especially hungry later on when we kind of slow down at night. So how can you eliminate some of the distractions while eating, even at nighttime with dinner? Is there so many moving parts with dinner? Are you actually sitting down to have that meal? Slowing down. Nicole talked about this in her presentation, really slowing down with eating. And a lot of times what I'll say is it's not like you have to sit and eat a meal in a dark box and like nobody's around you and all. That's just not possible. But can we turn off the notifications, the signals, the bings, the ringing, all of that while we're eating? Can we just have a meal, taking time to slow down? And I know it's really hard during the day. A lot of times at the hospital, I have more of a working lunch. So it's doing the best that we can, but maybe being mindful of the fact that when we're chowing something down and maybe we look at the container, the bag, the row of cookies, and you're like, oh my God, I just ate the whole thing and I didn't even realize it. That's when we get into the zone of that mindless eating and we're just distracted with eating. And again, that's when those signals that we should be appreciating, that we should be listening to our body, those messages that our body is telling us in regards to food and eating, that's when those start to get missed. So look at how you're running through your day. When are you eating? What's that environment like? Look at your macronutrient balance, right? Are you eating enough throughout the day so that when you get home, you're not getting into that ravenous state, right? And just start off by paying more attention. Just pay attention and listen to your body. Start asking those questions when you feel like I want to eat right now, but maybe I just had dinner. So why do I want to eat like 1 hour after dinner time? Is it bored? Am I feeling a certain way, right? What emotion is going on right now for me? Because honestly, we've just used food as our coping mechanism for so long. So first is just becoming aware that we do it. And then next is how do we have kind of I like to call it a what else list. What else can I do in that moment if I'm feeling kind of upset about my day from work? Can I talk to somebody about it? Can I journal about it? Can I take a walk? Can I take a shower? Because a lot of times we just need a little bit of that distraction, right? So that again, it's like that delay of the after we've eaten, that the gut tells the brain, okay, there's like that delay that it gets the message, okay, we've eaten. So can you do something? Can you ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Is this really just stress? What do I actually need that isn't just food? Sometimes, okay, it's not a perfect scenario. Sometimes, right, it will happen. You will eat. And what I'll say there is that the more that we blame ourselves for it, the more that we feel guilty about it, the more that we lie awake at night, right? And we're kind of looking at the ceiling and thinking about our day, and we make what I call those pacts or promises, where it's like, tomorrow I'm going to be better. Tomorrow I'm going to eat everything clean. I'm going to drink all the water in the world. Like, tomorrow will be better. I'm not going to overdo it at night. I'm not going to binge at night. We make all these little promises to ourselves. But again, that fixation on food and really that anxiety around food, that worry, and especially that guilt that we have, just keep in mind that that contributes to that psychological stress as well. So how can you give yourself a little grace? And when these episodes happen, say you overeat at some certain time, say you really fall into a pattern of stress eating, how can you just give yourself some grace, recognize it, and then it's, how do we learn from this? How do we grow from this and use it as a lesson? It's a $1 million lesson, right? That we can appreciate instead of constantly feeling badly about it. And that's where you can make progress. The number one thing that I like to say on my own journey is, when I stopped trying to be perfect on my eating journey and my health journey, and I was okay with failing, but learning what message was I supposed to learn from something that I didn't want to do, from something that I failed at. When I started being okay with failing and not being perfect, that's when I made the most progress in my journey. So how can you do that too on your own journey? And that'll kind of wrap it up, you guys. Does anybody have any questions? I hope I left you with just some takeaways. I want to make sure there are some action steps here that we can kind of move towards working on. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I think it's fantastic what you're talking about. And yeah, it really piggybacks on what McCall was talking about too.
Yes.
And I know people are watching now that didn't see McCall, so it's totally
True.
to reiterate some of those things. But they'll be able to catch the replay if they join
Yeah.
the community. So
I teased it for everybody. So now
yeah,
you're like,
right.
what did she talk about? I need to.
They're so good as always. But
Right.
yeah,
Aw.
absolutely. And I think people get into that habitual habit of self-negative talk, and that just I usually tell my people that sometimes we're our own worst enemies.
We are.
We really are the ones that are doing the most damage inside our own minds and in our own
Absolutely.
bodies.
Yep.
So we just got to get out of our head, and we've got to start focusing on the um, the good, focus on the wins, focus on the gratefulness, and
Yes.
really start to bring that, to fruit, because that's really where it's key, is bringing in that mindset. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I agree. I love it.
Yeah.
That you, say you don't believe in self-sabotage and
Yep. Yeah. It's my thing. But yeah, I mean, so important, and we'll definitely dive on that in future presentations, just talking about those low vibrational states, because there's a very big connection with that to emotional eating, and it can really perpetuate it. So that's a whole spiel, a whole topic for another day. But you absolutely nailed it there.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I always tell my clients, when they're in those low frequency states, they're drawn to those low frequency foods, because
Totally. Yep.
those foods that are manufactured, they actually have a low frequency. And so
Absolutely.
you're drawn to those. And
Yep.
you'll notice anytime someone is like wanting to change their life, like they're just miserable, the
Hmm.
first thing they think of is, I'm going to change the way I eat. Like they want to change their diet. But I think that's intuition leading them to those higher frequency foods that elevates them into those higher frequencies, that actually allows them to start to transform. So
It's
it's
so true.
amazing Yeah, it's really a process. And so when you're drawn to like clean up your life and clean up your diet, your body's telling you something for a reason.
Yes. Yes.
But
Brilliant reasons why.
yeah, you have to get out of that cycle in order to see it.
Yes, it's awesome. It's very, very cool and it's very doable for anyone. So I know it can be kind of like that hard journey. It can feel like hopeless at times, but um, anyone can do it. So I always say if I can do it, anybody can, but we just have
Right.
to figure out those reasons why. So yeah.
So do you work with people who have like sensory disorders? Do you ever your
Like in what way? Like,
like can't tolerate the consistency of certain foods and have um
mhm.
problems with like touching certain meats and just sensory issues.
That's
So
amazing. I not very deeply, just like preferences with food and like textures and people a lot of people will come in like I'm a picky eater and things like that. So it's more of like just textures of certain foods, but what we learn along the way is that as we experiment with the nutrition plan and you change things, right? Our taste buds can change.
mhm.
And they absolutely do. So that's kind of a journey as well. But not too much of that not yet, though. Absolutely, that like sensory piece.
Mhm.
That's so interesting too. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would just be part of everyone is an individual and unique.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
mhm.
I'm seeing it more in children these days, that they're having
Oh,
disorders.
okay. Yep.
But we've noticed too that the more that you start to introduce these foods in a way that they can consume, such as what our philosophy is, hide everything in a smoothie.
Yes, exactly. Throw it in there,
In a
blend it up.
smoothie. Everybody likes a milkshake.
Yeah.
But once you start doing that, their body chemistry starts to change, and then their taste buds start to change, and then their cravings start to change.
Totally.
It's just this spiral up, you know?
Yes. Yes. I love that. Yep. Spiral up. Let's do it.
So I'm so excited about you being on our platform as well. I loved seeing all of the collective of healers that we're going to be bringing in here. Rashad was commenting earlier, and I can't wait for his. I'm like pressing him to get a workshop together because I'm so
Yes.
interested in his.
Yes. Can't wait.
The transformer is how he calls it.
Very cool.
But I think it's going to be a fantastic year. I mean, it's going to be so amazing.
So excited. I'm so just thrilled and honored to be a part of this as both because I learn just as much as I can teach. So it's so great. It's just
I know.
wonderful.
Well, I mean, that's why I had to create it because I want to learn this stuff.
Exactly, exactly, right? And that's the cool thing is that we can have our own personal journey
Yes.
as right as we're going
Yeah, of
along the
course.
way.
Yeah.
Love that.
Just constantly learning and constantly growing. So
Yeah.
for sure. All
Yeah.
right. Well, if anybody
Woo.
has any more questions, you can throw it in the chat.
Mhm.
I'm looking around my camera here to see what time it is.
Oh, I do have a little like free gift as well. So let me hope that I have
You
my
got
list
that in
here.
the chat
Okay,
for us.
perfect. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. It will just dive more into basically the triggers and what drives our stress eating, emotional eating, and even cravings. So it's a little cheat sheet that I have, but I really break it down step by step there. So definitely
Beautiful.
check that out. It's a guide, and then on page 2 there's a link to the video, and I talk through the guide so that you understand it. So yeah, just makes it fun. It's about 20-minute video and just a deep dive. So
Beautiful. And for those of you who are members of Alternative Healthcare Solutions and you're subscribed to our community, that will be posted into our community as well so that you can find Amber in there and get her little freebie and continue the conversations, right?
yeah, exactly. I love it. We could just chat for days and days. Love
All
it.
right.
Sweet.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I guess we
Yeah,
can jump off here and
perfect.
catch you in the
Sounds good.
replays.
All right. Bye,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Take care.